NBIA, Natural Bioscience Intelligence Agency. What you're about to hear is a science podcast told as a spy thriller. The science is real. The mission is yours.
Steel. I'm at the Mattel depot, third packing shed on the right. I've got a shipment label here. Organic Ceylon cinnamon, grade A, Cinnamomum verum. Seal looks clean, but the molecular signature is wrong. This is cassia.
How many units?
Depot alone, 4,000 retail canisters. And this is one of 11 distribution nodes we've mapped. The same misrepresentation is running through every major wellness cinnamon brand in the US market. Chinese cassia, Saigon cassia, Carinthia cassia. They call it all cinnamon. It is not the same compound.
And the delivery vehicle for this operation?
Metabolic wellness beverage line, rebranded HFCS 55, is chicory-derived sweetener. It's in hospital cafeterias, steel, pharmacy chains, targeted at pre-diabetics. The people who need the real countermeasure most are getting the wrong cinnamon and the active threat compound in the same product.
Biochemistry doesn't care about label design, Viper. The receptor doesn't read marketing copy. There is a countermeasure, real, studied, dosed. We find the genuine article before this clock runs out. The solution is also real and specific. You'll have it before this episode ends, 48 hours earlier. Geneva.
The following operatives are cleared for active deployment. Classification level, restricted. Director, lead analyst. He does not form hypotheses, he builds cases.
Every chronic disease has a supply chain. We find it, we shut it down.
Field operative, biochemical scout. She has never been wrong about a target twice.
The answer is always in the field. You just have to know where they don't want you looking.
Systems strategist, longevity division. He thinks in decades. The rest of the team thinks in missions.
Most of what kills people at 60 was decided at the dinner table at 30. We're not here for the symptom. We're here for the decision.
Data intelligence officer, science division. She doesn't speculate, she cites.
The study exists. The mechanism is documented. The dose is known. The only question is whether anyone was paying attention.
Junior operative, science division. First active deployment. Clearance level, provisional.
I've read every file in the archive. I just haven't seen it in the field yet.
Operatives confirmed. Mission is live. First briefing. Operative profiles on record. All subsequent missions assume full clearance.
The longitudinal data from the NHANES cohort is unambiguous. Fasting insulin levels in the US. Population have tracked HFCS consumption with a correlation coefficient of 0.94 since 1975. That's not a coincidence. That's a mechanism with a 40-year head start on us.
Viper's field sample just cleared verification. I'm confirming. Cinnamomum cassia, not verum. Coumarin concentration at 2,100 parts per million. The European Food Safety Authority threshold for daily coumarin exposure is 0.1 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. The doses needed to activate the insulin receptor pathway 3 to 6 grams daily would push a 154-pound individual to 3 times that threshold inside a week. The formulator knew which species to substitute.
Brief me.
The formulator has rebranded HFCS 55, High-Fructose Corn Syrup, 55% fructose fraction as a chicory-derived natural sweetener. It is in a mid-tier metabolic wellness beverage line currently distributed across 14 US, regional hospital cafeteria networks, and 3 national pharmacy chains, 340 million units in circulation. The label reads, clean.
The mechanism.
Think of insulin as a key, and your cell as a house with a lock on the door. What fructose does through a chain of molecular events is jam that lock. The longer it goes on, the harder it becomes to reverse. Here's the mechanism. Fructose bypasses the phosphofructokinase regulatory checkpoint. Glucose requires this gatekeeper enzyme, fructose does not. It floods the liver unimpeded, and in doing so, triggers a cascade that generates Advanced Glycation End-products, AGEs. These AGEs cross-link with insulin receptor proteins. Specifically, they jam the tyrosine kinase domain of the receptor's beta subunit, the molecular keyhole that insulin requires to initiate glucose transport. The key snaps off in the lock. Insulin can still be present. Insulin can still be released, but the receptor can no longer respond. Glucose cannot enter the cell regardless of how much insulin is circulating.
So the fructose essentially breaks the lock that insulin needs to work. And once it's broken, it stays broken?
Cumulative damage. Correct. That is an accurate simplification.
Which is why the timeline matters. Keep up, Cypher.
Systemic insulin resistance at the receptor level, not the hormone level. The pancreas compensates by producing more insulin. Blood insulin rises, the receptor remains jammed. You get hyperinsulinemia and hyperglycemia simultaneously. This is the metabolic signature of type 2 diabetes. The formulator has put the trigger compound directly into hospital cafeterias serving the pre-diabetic population. 340 million units means consistent daily exposure for those most vulnerable, and the AGE cross-linking is cumulative. In 10 years, this looks like a diabetes epidemic with no traceable point source. He is not accelerating disease by accident.
The countermeasure.
Ceylon cinnamon. Cinnamomum verum. Active compound. Methyl hydroxycalcone polymer MHCP. It mimics insulin's conformational effect on the receptor's beta subunit, independently phosphorylating IRS1 and activating GLUT4 transporter translocation to the cell membrane. It moves glucose into the cell through a parallel pathway, not the jammed receptor, a new door entirely. The AGE crosslink is irrelevant to this mechanism. MHCP doesn't fix the lock. It opens a different entrance.
And the species substitution problem.
90% of global cinnamon sold at retail is Cinnamomum cassia, not verum. The MHCP concentration in cassia is insufficient for therapeutic effect. The coumarin concentration is hepatotoxic at therapeutic doses. They share a common name. They do not share a mechanism. The formulator knew the cassia substitution would ensure his operation was insulated from any attempted countermeasure by the general population.
Viper finds us the genuine article. Ghost, I want the full longitudinal damage model on my screen before she lands. Frost, dosing parameters, and peer-reviewed confirmation. I want nothing we can't defend with a citation.
14 hours later, Matal district, Sri Lanka, the cinnamon highlands. Primary peeling shed, Matale perimeter. Quills are hand-rolled, inner bark layered, pale, thin as paper. This is Cinnamomum verum, confirmed by morphology alone. Not the single hard, dark cylinder of cassia, taking a verified sample now.
Confirmed. Matal produces 90% of global Cinnamomum verum. MHCP concentration in authentic verum from that region, 0.9 to 1.4 milligrams per gram of dried bark. Cassia is negligible by comparison.
There's a secondary shipment staged at the rear of the depot. Labels read Ceylon. I'm pulling the seal, this one is verum, but it's being held. Someone acquired an exclusive supply contract on this batch 2 weeks ago. Ghost, do we have a corporate identifier on the holding party?
Supply chain trace confirms the holding entity is a shell registered in the Cayman Islands, 6 weeks old, with distribution contracts into the same hospital and pharmacy networks as the wellness beverage line. He isn't just deploying the threat compound, he's suppressing access to the countermeasure simultaneously. The operation has 2 vectors, not 1.
N3.
Active. The Cayman entity's purchase volume represents 340 metric tons of Cinnamomum verum over a 6-month forward contract, sufficient to suppress therapeutic dose retail supply across all U.S. top 15 natural food distribution networks for an estimated 11 months. At current distribution rate of the HFCS 55 beverage line, projected pre-diabetic progression in the target population crosses the clinical threshold for irreversible receptor impairment in 8 months. The supply suppression timeline exceeds the damage timeline by 3 months. The timing is not coincidental.
Viper. secure the secondary shipment, release it through verified independent distributors. We're bypassing the chain he built.
Already in motion. I'm also documenting the cassia as verum substitution at the first depot, full photographic record for the counterfeit labeling file. This is systematic misrepresentation at commercial scale.
Viper transport note: MHCP degrades under UV exposure. Opaque packaging, cool dry storage. Quill form retain full concentration up to 2 years. Ground powder degrades significantly faster.
Walk me through the pathway. From ingestion,
MHCP survives gastric acid largely intact. The stomach's low pH environment degrades many polyphenols. MHCP is structurally resistant. It reaches the small intestinal epithelium, passes through the enterocyte brush border, enters portal circulation. Transit time from ingestion to hepatic tissue, approximately 30 minutes. The same address where the fructose did its damage. From there, it enters systemic circulation and docks at skeletal muscle cell membranes, the largest glucose-consuming tissue in the body. It binds to insulin receptor beta subunits at a site adjacent to, but not blocked by, the AGE crosslinks. This is the critical geometry of the countermeasure. The JAM tyrosine kinase domain is not in MHCP's binding path. MHCP triggers autophosphorylation of tyrosine residues, 1,158, 1,162, and 1,163, 3 specific phosphorylation sites that activate the PI3K ACT signaling cascade downstream. This cascade is the internal signal the cell uses to deploy GLUT4. GLUT4 vesicles are stored just beneath the plasma membrane, parked, waiting for exactly this signal. When PI3K ACT fires, they migrate to the cell surface. They embed in the membrane. Glucose transporters open. Glucose enters the cell.
So MHCP doesn't fix the original problem, it just finds a completely different way in?
Correct. The compromised pathway is irrelevant to the countermeasure. That is precisely the mechanism.
the AG crosslink snapped the key in the original lock. MHCP built an entirely new door.
The door was always there. MHCP simply knows the address.
Deal secondary shipments secured and redistributed. Independent verification of species authenticity on all outgoing units. The Cassia as Verum counterfeit documentation is complete and filed with the Sri Lanka Export Development Board. The label fraud is now a regulatory matter, not just ours.
Good. Return to Geneva.
We stopped the supply suppression. The genuine countermeasure is in circulation. But the HFCS 55 beverage line is still operational. 340 million units.
The labeling fraud file has been filed. The misrepresentation case will take time. Regulatory velocity is not our velocity.
It never is. That's why the individual gets the information first. Anyone who knows the mechanism, knows the species distinction, knows the dose, they don't need the regulatory decision. They've already made their own.
Deal. Incoming transmission fragment. Encrypted, partially corrupted. It's him.
High stability frying oil profile confirmed. Peroxide value undetectable at point of sale. 4-HNE inflammatory cascade onset. 72 hours post-consumption. Distribution routing through school and hospital networks.
4-HNE. 4-hydroxynonenal. Oxidized lipidaldehyde. Neuroexcytotoxic mitochondrial disruption. NF-kappa B activation. He's moved to the lipid sector.
School and hospital networks again. Same infrastructure, different compound. He's running 2 operations simultaneously and using our own distribution countermeasures as cover to move the new one.
I'll have the lipid oxidation cascade mapped within 4 hours. Frying oil stability data by supply chain region. I already know what the countermeasure will be. I need the distribution data to confirm the dosing window.
He's always 3 moves ahead.
So are we. We just don't announce it. Operation. Glucose siege closed. Authorization for mission 002 is live. Find his oil.
Everything you're about to hear has been published in peer-reviewed research. I'm going to give you the mechanism, the study, and the exact dose in plain language. When you ingest fructose, particularly the concentrated fructose in high-fructose corn syrup, it floods the liver through a pathway that bypasses normal glycolytic regulation. This triggers the production of Advanced Glycation End-products, or AGEs, which physically cross-link with the tyrosine kinase domain of your insulin receptor. The receptor's signaling function is structurally impaired. Insulin is present, the door is locked from inside, glucose cannot enter your cells. Ceylon cinnamon Cinnamomum verum contains an active compound called MHCP, methyl hydroxychalcone polymer. MHCP binds to a site on the insulin receptor beta subunit that is adjacent to the AGE blocked domain. It independently triggers the PI3K ACT signaling cascade, which deploys GLUT4 transporters to the cell surface. The broken receptor is irrelevant. MHCP opens a parallel entrance. Glucose enters the cell. Khan and colleagues, published in Diabetes Care, Volume 26, Issue 12, in 2003. 60 subjects with confirmed type 2 diabetes, randomized, placebo-controlled. Participants received 1, 3, or 6 grams of Ceylon cinnamon daily for 40 days. Result, fasting serum glucose reduced by 18 to 29%. Triglycerides reduced by 23 to 30%. Insulin sensitivity markers improved significantly across all 3 dose groups compared to placebo. The effect was dose-responsive but not dose-dependent. 1 gram was effective. The therapeutic dose: 1 gram of Ceylon cinnamon daily, approximately half a teaspoon. That is the dose the study used. Here is the detail the industry does not want you to focus on. The study used Cinnamomum verum, not cassia, not cinnamon as generically sold. 90% of cinnamon on retail shelves globally is Cinnamomum cassia, a related but biochemically distinct species. Cassia contains coumarin levels that are hepatotoxic at therapeutic doses. Cassia does not produce the same insulin receptor effect. The species name matters. Verify your label. Look for Cinnamomum verum or the designation Ceylon cinnamon before purchase. If the label only says cinnamon, assume cassia. The science tells you what to take. Here is how you actually find it. One more thing. Here is exactly how you find the real thing. The label must say Cinnamomum verum, not Cinnamomum cassia, not simply cinnamon. The words Ceylon cinnamon are acceptable only if the Latin species name is also present. The quill form is more reliable than powder. Authentic verum quills are thin, multi-layered, tan, and soft enough to roll between your fingers. A single hard dark cylinder is cassia. Verified brands currently include Frontier Co-op, Simply Organic Ceylon, Cinnamon, and Burlap and Barrel. Each lists the Latin name on the label. These are not the only verified sources, and brands evolve. Check the video description for current recommendations as they are updated. This is Frost. The science is real, the dose is known. Now you know it too.